Well, if there's one thing I can assure you about life that I have learned in my now 30 years of existence on planet Earth, it is that life comes at you fast. Let's get started. Life comes at you fast indeed. Welcome in. Hi, hello, and welcome in to Ball Don't Lie, episode number 138. My name is Austin Elmore. Happy to be with you today. My first episode after turning 30 years old. And why do I say that life comes at you fast? Well, I woke up on Tuesday morning, day after Memorial Day. Everything's good, right? Like ready to go. I'm into my 30s. I've had breakfast tacos like 3 days in a row. Like life's good. Go to the gym, trying to get, work on my fitness, trying to get back in shape. And I felt a little bit of tug in my back at the end. I was doing leg lifts, legs go up, legs go down, legs go up, legs go down. I felt a little bit of pull in my back. I was, all right, whatever, no big deal. And I get home and get ready for the day and everything, and I'm leaning down to put on my shoes and kind of like straining to pull them up over my heel, and I feel this in my back, and I'm thinking, oh no, this isn't good. So when I drop my foot back down to the ground, I felt a pain that I have not felt in a long time. I don't know that I've ever felt a pain like that. I'm still feeling it right now. I have a pillow back here behind my back. I have never in my life hurt my back as badly as it is hurt right now. I have no explanation. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it that I was doing it while putting on my shoes. I'm going to blame most of it on the leg lifts I was doing, and that's not a very good excuse either. Is this what it's going to be? Is this life coming at me fast? Is this 30 years old and up now? I'm going to have back trouble for the rest of my life. Is that what this is all about? Was I justified in being scared about turning 30? In all reality, I've did a number on my back lately, playing a lot of golf, swinging a lot of golf clubs, went to a place called Caddies for my birthday, played in a tournament the week before, been working out, trying some new workout. You know what? It's probably just I didn't have good enough form, wasn't taking care of myself properly, and a freak accident. But good Lord Almighty, I hope it goes away soon. I am walking around my apartment. I'm walking around work like an 83-year-old man hunched over. I got to push on my legs just to get my torso back up. This is embarrassing. It really is. But we press forward because we have no other options. It feels like somebody swung an axe at my lower back. That's what it feels like. Oh, man. All right, but we're going to power through because that's what we do on the Ball Don't Lie podcast. Let's start. I want to do Bengals schedule today, right? Haven't had a chance to really break that down on this show. We talked about the opponents, but we haven't had a chance to really break down how the schedule works out. And then I also want to talk a little bit and start with Shemar Stewart. Shemar Stewart was the Bengals' first round pick in the NFL draft a month or so ago. Defensive end out of Texas A&M, an edge player, if you will. This was a guy who had a lot of pressures and has all the right intangibles, but didn't have all the right production. So he's the Bengals' first round pick. With the Trey Hendrickson saga going on, it's expected Shemar Stewart will come in and certainly get an opportunity to rush the passer in Cincinnati and play right away. Again, part of the reason why Lou Anarumo was fired was because he didn't get enough out of the young players. The expectation is that Al Golden and new defensive line coach Jerry Montgomery will give Shemar Stewart a chance to come in and produce right away. That's the plan for Shemar Stewart. The only problem is Shemar Stewart doesn't have a contract at the moment. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, here we go again. Are we talking about Bengals contracts again? And the answer, unfortunately, is yes. Now, at the time I'm recording this, 9 first-round picks have not yet signed their deals with their teams. So it's not just the Bengals. And also, I also want to clarify, there are contract disputes and issues across the National Football League right now. Terry McLaurin is not at Commanders' voluntary workouts. Kirk Cousins did not show up to first day of OTAs with the Atlanta Falcons because he's unhappy and he wants to be traded. There are these little things happening across the league. There's one other one too that I'm blanking on at the moment, but this happens this time of year. It's not uncommon. Yes, the Bengals are the subject of this podcast and really the biggest talking point in the National Football League, I think, because Trey was the sack leader, but contract disputes happen all the time. It's also not uncommon for a first round pick not to be signed at this point. The Bengals historically take their time with first round picks. They've waited as late as August. They've waited as late as late August. They've signed guys in July, right before training camp, early July. It's not uncommon for this to be where we're at. But there is something uncommon happening in these negotiations. Now, with first round picks, with the CBA and how everything works out, all that money is slotted. Like, you know how much money you're going to get depending on where your draft position was. First round pick this, first round pick that. Everybody knows the amount of money that you're going to get, how much of it is guaranteed, how much of it is not, and so on. But it's all written in stone, like you know how it's going to work. So that you would think makes negotiations a lot easier, and part of the reason why 24 players have already signed. But there are certain parts of contracts that determine when you get a certain amount of money. Some guys sign their name, they get the money 3 weeks later. Some guys sign their name, they get the money when they show up to training camp. Some guys sign their name, they get it in different types of payments. Everything is a little bit different. Most of the time, it's uniform. So, for the last couple of years, the Bengals have signed contracts with first round picks, Miles Murphy and Amarius Mims. They've also signed long term extensions with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And everything is pretty simple. Everything's standard contract language, nothing different. Well, what we're hearing about the Shemar Stewart negotiation is that he wants a deal similar to what Amarius Mims got, who was the 18th pick in the draft a year ago, and what Miles Murphy got, who was, I think, the 21st or 22nd pick in the NFL draft a couple of years ago. He wants the same contract, basically, that those guys got, the same language. He wants to get his money at the same time. He wants everything to be like that. Well, the Bengals apparently are trying to add something into this deal that they haven't used in previous deals. Didn't even use it in the contract extensions with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Here's what it is, according to Pro Football Talk. Per a source with knowledge of the situation, the Bengals want to include a phrase that causes a default in the current year to trigger a default in all remaining years. The problem is that the contract signed by last year's first round pick, Amarius Mims, does not include the language that the Bengals are now attempting to insert into Stewart's deal. And Mims was taken one spot lower, number 18, than Stewart was picked in 2025, which was number 17. He said, Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk, goes on to say that it is an issue for Stewart's camp in part because that language does not appear in the deals recently signed by Chase and Higgins. And so the Bengals seem to be making a change in the way that they do business. So a couple of weeks ago, I reached out to somebody and I said, what's going on here? Why is this happening? And they said to me, the words they used, the Bengals are trying to do something unprecedented. Unprecedented. I don't know. I've asked around what this means with the default and how it would trigger and how it would work and when he gets the money. And nobody really seems to know the details on that and how it differs from the previous deals and how maybe down the line it has an effect. That we don't really know. And so there's not much we can say except that it is still really early. And the other part here is if you're the Bengals and you just went through an offseason full of contract negotiations with Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins, ongoing with Trey Hendrickson, when you are talked about daily on national talk shows and you're kind of made fun of because you're considered cheap and you're considered stubborn and you don't do things like the rest of the league, it, that's a black eye on the organization. It is. And every single day it's being talked about on national talk shows. And it just makes me wonder, when you've gone through all of that over the course of the offseason, why do you choose now with a first round pick to try to do something you've never done before? Why do you try to add language in? Why do you try to deviate from the norm? my colleague Mo Egger said that the Bengals have to do a better job of picking their battles. And I agree with him. This is not a battle you need right now. This is not a PR. He's going to get all the money regardless. That's how it works. There's nothing they can do about that. But determining when he gets the money, that I think is silly, especially when the Bengals right now have well over 35 million or well over $30 million in cap space, and if they cut Jermaine Pratt, would be closer to 32, $33 million altogether in cap space. So it just doesn't make sense why they would choose to do this. And it's frustrating that here we are again having a conversation about a contract and we're not talking as much about football. Shemar Stewart, though, has been at the voluntary workouts. He's been at rookie minicamp. He's been at the beginning of OTAs. Like, he's showed up. He's just not practicing. He also, the other thing about this that's strange is that you can sign an injury waiver, right? That says, hey, if I get hurt during these workouts, it's not going to affect my contract, blah, blah, blah. Other Bengals rookies have signed this waiver and are participating. But for some reason, Shemar Stewart has not signed this waiver. So he's not participating in these drills like the other rookies are, including rookies that haven't signed their contracts yet. So I think that's notable that we're still in that situation with Shemar Stewart. So both sides are kind of holding off a little bit, standing off a little bit, and I don't know how long until there's going to be progress on that. But it just seems to me like an unnecessary battle, an unnecessary fight, and another conversation surrounding the organization that's really just not necessary. And for me and for what I do, it's great content. Everybody loves that. But for the Bengals and for fans, it's probably exhausting. It's probably tiring to be saying the same things over and over and over again. All right, let's get to the schedule. If you're watching on YouTube, no cup of Joe mug today. It's in the dishwasher, getting cleaned up. So went with an old one here. Sorry about that. Anyways, Bengals schedule. It was released in mid-May. May 14th was the NFL schedule release date. And we haven't had a chance to really dive into it a little bit. I did an entire show on it for like 3 hours the night that it was released on ESPN 1530. I've talked about it a lot on the show since then, but haven't really spent a ton of time on it. So we knew who all the opponents were going to be. We've known that ahead of time. We just don't know when and where or when the Bengals were going to be playing them. We knew where, we knew who, but we didn't know the when. And now we know the when. The other part we didn't know is how many primetime games do the Bengals have? Do they get a chance to host a home primetime game, which they haven't done as much in recent years? Do they get a chance to host a home divisional primetime game, which they haven't done very much in recent years? So that's what we were looking for. And the other part was there's some big names on the schedule this year. The Detroit Lions come to Cincinnati. The Buffalo Bills. The Bengals have to travel up there. The New England Patriots, who kind of ruined the season last year and have had maybe the best offseason this year, are on the schedule this year. The Green Bay Packers are on there as well, another playoff team. The Minnesota Vikings, who won 14 games a year ago, on the schedule as well. So here's how the Bengals schedule works out. I'm going to read it off to you, and then we're going to go through some of the more important parts of the schedule. Week 1, at home, Cleveland Browns. Week 1 at the Cleveland Browns, 1 p.m. That's a Fox game. I hate that the Bengals and Browns are played on Fox now, but week 1 at Cleveland Browns. Week 2, home opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 1 p.m. Week 3, at Minnesota Vikings, 1 p.m. Week 4, at Denver Broncos, Monday Night Football. So the first primetime game comes in week 4, a rematch of one of the most entertaining games in the NFL a year ago, the Bengals and Broncos, Monday Night Football. Then week 5, back in Cincinnati, Detroit Lions, 4:25 p.m. Week 6, at Green Bay Packers, 4:25 p.m. Week 7, another primetime game, this one at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday Night Football. Week 8 is at home against the New York Jets. Week 9 is at home against the Chicago Bears, both of those games at 1 p.m. So if you're counting, that is 3 straight home games going into a Week 10 bye week. That's favorable. Then you come out of the bye in Week 10. Week 11, you are at Pittsburgh, 1 p.m. Week 12, you are home against New England, 1 p.m. Week 13, at Baltimore, Thanksgiving night. That is a primetime NBC Thanksgiving night game between the Bengals and the Ravens. Then, week 14, at Buffalo Bills. Yikes. Gets worse, though. Week 15, home, Baltimore Ravens. So you have a stretch of Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore on the Bengals schedule. Then they are at the Miami Dolphins on Sunday Night Football in Week 16. In Week 17, they are home against the Arizona Cardinals. And in Week 18, home against the Cleveland Browns. So let's break this down a little bit. This season is bookended with the Browns. See the Browns in Week 1, see the Browns in Week 18. Those will be two very different teams when the Bengals play them in those 2 weeks. The home opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Bengals have said they're establishing a new tradition, the open in orange tradition, where they wear all orange. Everybody in the stadium wears orange. That's going to happen against Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jags with a new head coach, by the way, Liam Cohen, in week number 2. Week number 3 is one of the more interesting matchups. They are at Minnesota. All right. Now, Minnesota is trying to figure out what their quarterback situation is going to be. They've basically decided on J.J. McCarthy. They let Sam Darnold walk. They've given Justin Jefferson a big contract. Like, Minnesota's a solid team. They still have Brian Flores, their defensive coordinator, who's a mastermind. That's going to be interesting. I think getting Minnesota early while you're still figuring out J.J. McCarthy is going to be good for the Bengals, but I also think Kevin O'Connell is the best offensive football coach in the NFL, and I think that he could have those guys ready to go by then. Altogether, the Bengals have 4 primetime games. Week 4 at Denver on Monday night. Week 7 at home against Pittsburgh on a Thursday night. Week 13 at Baltimore, that Thanksgiving night game. And week 16 at Miami on Sunday Night Football. They also have like 3 of those 425 slots that are like game of the week type of games. And that I find really interesting. Those are week 5 at home against Detroit. The Bengals have not had a America's Game of the Week 425 game on Fox in 16 years. Kind of amazing. So they'll host Detroit for that. And then the following week, they're at Green Bay, week 6. What's interesting about the Green Bay game is that it's a 4:25 p.m. Eastern start. It's a 4:25 start with the Bengals hosting a Thursday night game a few days later. It's not normal to have a 4:25 start and then on the road and then on Thursday Night Football the following week, a couple of days later. That's abnormal, a bit of a disadvantage. They also have a 4:25 start week 14 at Buffalo, that game also on Fox. So to me, looking at this, the easiest stretch of games is the first 3 weeks. Cleveland, Jacksonville, Minnesota. You get to play one of those games at home. Obviously, that's not ideal, but Cleveland is probably going to be starting Joe Flacco at quarterback. They haven't done much this offseason. Minnesota, as I mentioned earlier, has the question marks around their quarterback. And then Jacksonville has a new head coach. And I think the jury is still out in a lot of ways on Trevor Lawrence. But you now are going to be facing the number 2 pick in the draft, Travis Hunter, the former Heisman Trophy winner. And you also have Brian Thomas Jr. in Jacksonville, who exploded onto the scene as one of the best young players in the NFL a year ago. That, I think, is an easy stretch. I also think weeks 7 through 10 are easy because you play Pittsburgh at home on a Thursday night. Still don't know who their quarterback is going to be. You play the Jets at home, the Bears at home. None of those 2 teams are expected to do much this year. They're both at 1 o'clock, and then you go into a bye week at week 10. So you have 3 home games going into a bye week. The Bengals don't travel for a long time by the time they get home from Green Bay late on October the 12th. They won't travel again until a month later, over a month later at Pittsburgh, and that's a super easy flight. That's crazy to me. That, I think, is a big advantage for the Bengals. The other thing is week 7 home Pittsburgh Steelers Thursday Night Football. Got some stats for you. I may have read these once before, but divisional road primetime games in the National Football League, and especially in the AFC North, are a tall task. The Bengals have gotten screwed with divisional road primetime games more than any team in the AFC North in recent years. Listen to this. These stats come from Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic. Over the last 6 seasons, AFC North teams are 3-13 overall in divisional road primetime games and 5-11 against the spread. 6 years is not a coincidence, it's a clear trend. So, in the last 6 seasons, the Bengals have played 7 road primetime games inside the AFC North. In those games, they are 1-6. Pittsburgh has played the next most. They've played just 5. They are 1-4 in those games. Cleveland has only played 3. They're 0-3 in those games. And here's what's ridiculous. Over the last 6 seasons, the Baltimore Ravens have played one road divisional primetime game. How is that possible? So, the Bengals have a distinct advantage having Pittsburgh in Cincinnati on a Thursday night in Week 7. The numbers just suggest that that's an advantage for the Bengals. Where do the Bengals have a disadvantage? Week 13 at Baltimore. This will be the 3rd year in a row that the Bengals will go to Baltimore on a short week. It'll be the 3rd year in a row that they have gone to Baltimore on a Thursday night to play a game. First 2, obviously, were Thursday Night Football. This one is going to be Thanksgiving night primetime. But it's also the 4th time in a row, 4th year in a row, that the Bengals have played in Baltimore on primetime. So the last 2, so this year is going to be Thanksgiving. The 2 previous were Thursday Night Football. And the one before that was a Sunday Night Football game in Baltimore. I believe the Bengals lost that game 16-13. Something ugly. 4 years in a row at Baltimore in primetime. And on top of that, 4 years in a row, Baltimore has come to Cincinnati and played at 1 p.m. How is that possible? Joe Burrow voiced his frustration with the league when he met with the media last week, said that he disagreed with that and thought that that was bad. Mike North, who's the NFL's president of VP of broadcast operations or whatever he is, he said, yeah, it's a fair criticism. And when we have a trend that emerges like that, maybe we have to consider a change. No kidding, Mike. 4 years in a row in Baltimore, and the fact that Baltimore has played one divisional road primetime game this entire time over the last 6 years, that's just not right. And I'm not here to complain about it. Like, I'm not like all big mad because you got to go to Baltimore regardless. But it just feels like one team there is getting preferential treatment compared to another. And especially when you consider how difficult it is to win divisional road primetime games in this division specifically. That, I think, is an unfair advantage to Baltimore, and I don't like it. On top of that, you have Baltimore Thanksgiving primetime. You do get a little mini bye after that, but you've got to go to Buffalo for a 425 game. That's not easy. To me, the hardest stretch of the year is weeks 13 through 16. That Baltimore game at Buffalo, and then back home against Baltimore, which, shocker, is at 1 p.m. in Cincinnati. So you have a stretch of Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore, and then in week 16, you're going to Miami in what is tentatively scheduled for Sunday Night Football. I say tentatively because those games can be flexed out. I don't think Miami's going to be very good, so I kind of expect that game to get flexed out. But that in and of itself is 3 primetime games essentially because you've got the 425 Fox game against Buffalo, Baltimore twice, Buffalo, who just went to the AFC Championship game a year ago, and Miami on a Sunday night. That's not easy. So that stretch in and of itself is by far the most difficult, right? I do think it's interesting, though, that they play Denver early on a Monday night. That I really like. It always seems to be that the Bengals and Broncos play a Monday night game whenever they get a chance. They've played a couple out there. They played one here, I think in 2014 when the Bengals clinched the division. Peyton was still playing. They played last year on like a Saturday night game. They always seem to put those two in primetime. It always seems to be a good game. Last year wasn't just a marvelous game. But I like the idea that week 4 is the first Monday night game, and then it's like it's fascinating. You go 4 weeks between 1 p.m. starts. Week 3 at Minnesota is at 1 p.m. You don't start at 1 p.m. again until week 8 against the Jets. And they only play one home game in September. One home game in the month of September is bonkers to me. Overall, though, the fact that they have a week 10 bye right smack in the middle of the season, I think is fantastic. That's a really good thing. I mentioned that stretch going into the bye. It overall gives the Bengals a chance to start fast. And we've talked endlessly about starting fast for this team. When you've got Cleveland, Jacksonville, Minnesota, Denver, you've got a chance. But after that, Detroit, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, it's not going to be easy. And you've got to come out of the bye hot as well with Pittsburgh, New England before that heavy 3-game stretch that I talked about previously. You also have 2 games towards the end of the season, maybe even 3, Miami, Arizona, Cleveland, against teams that I don't expect to be in it. That can be an advantage for the Bengals, and especially if they're going to be playing for playoff seeding. So I like that part about it. Easiest stretches, weeks 1 through 3, weeks 7 through 10. Hardest stretch, weeks 5 through 7 maybe, and weeks 13 through 16, obviously. The other part about this that I'm excited about, I'm going to take a drink of coffee, excuse me. The other part of this that I'm excited about is that I have booked my trip to Green Bay, Wisconsin to watch the Bengals. This is a bucket list for me. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long, long time. And it's the Bengals go there like every 8 years, something along those lines. And so I don't want to wait that long. And I'm in a spot to be able to do it right now. So I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go to Green Bay. I was praying that it fell not in late December where it's going to be the frozen tundra, not in early in the season where it's going to be 1,000 degrees, and not in like November when I have like weddings and stuff that I have to be at. And thankfully, the football gods smiled upon us with a October 12th game at Green Bay. So I've already booked the flight, booked the trip, booked the hotel. Everything is mostly taken care of. Still got to buy the tickets. Got a couple balls in the air right now with that. But I'm fired up. I'm going to do the stadium tour on Saturday before the game. Going to check out the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame. They have Titletown around there, which is, I guess, kind of like the Battery, kind of like the Banks, that type of thing, but maybe not quite as built up yet. I'm going to find a place to watch Thursday Night Football. I know a lot of Bengals fans are going to be making the trip. So this is my plea to you. If you're listening, if you've been to Green Bay, if you've been to a Bengals game in Green Bay, I want your recommendations. I'm also going to be staying in Appleton, which is 25, 30 minutes away, but I'll be in Green Bay every day. I want to hear from you. Like if you have any recommendations, places I got to go, things I got to check out, whatever it is, I would love for your help to make my trip to Green Bay special. I've already gotten a few. I've got like a saved folder of all the recommendations. I'm so excited about this. And excited to hopefully watch the Bengals win. I'm at the point I don't care if the Bengals win. Like I'm just excited to like be there, appreciate football. Like I love football. Shocker, right? But I'm just excited about that. So, so glad that it fell week 6 early on in the season. Weather should be perfect in Green Bay. Can't wait. All right, that does it for me. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to share it with somebody, tweet it out, post it on your story, whatever it might be. Just spread the word. Let people know about the Ball Don't Lie podcast. You can also follow me on Twitter, on everything, really, not just Twitter, on everything, at Auty Elmore, AUTYELMORE. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a review on the podcast, whatever you want to do. Please do it. If you liked what you heard, you can also hear me weekdays from 12 to 3, co-host a show called Cincy 360 with Tony Pike on ESPN 1530. You can listen anywhere you get your podcast, and you can listen live on the iHeartRadio app. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, have fun. Be safe. Go Bucs.